not taking a side. I'm just saying.
Well, it's easier to let a bad man live than to let a good man die.
That's catchy, and I wish I'd said it.
Alright guys, so we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to this episode and when it comes to the trailer of next week's episode, so I'm not gonna waste a lot of time here, just going to jump right into it. So welcome back guys to another one of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos and my review of the 4th episode of the 7th season, otherwise titled Out of the Past. Alright, so the first thing here, I did like how the recap started with that bit about Deke, Daisy, and Freddy, the objections of Mack, knowing that Mack would have his own issues, wanting to save Daniel Souza. I mean, we know that from the trailer, and considering the ending of the episode, that is exactly what he did. Only he did not do it the Daisy way, when wanting to kill Freddy, he did it the right way, in a way that does not really cause waves, but rather just ripples. Now the question over here is, what if what they're doing over here is basically bringing them back to the core timeline, the main Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, and I'm thinking that is pretty much a possibility. I mean, by the end of the episode, Daniel Souza is traveling with them through time. I'm assuming he's gonna travel with them through time over and over again to other points in time until they leave him at a certain point, and I think that point is gonna be either 2012 or a little bit before 2012. Meaning the two personalities of Enver Yokai in the Marvel Cinematic Universe could actually be one and the same. So, Daniel Souza could indeed end up becoming that cop in 2012 New York City, from the Avengers movie. But moving on though, the way it all starts, the film noir style of the entire thing, that felt a lot of old movies, a lot of black and white movies, but more importantly, I got this little bit of Sin City vibe. I don't know what it is really, but I think it's the multiple villains. You've got Hydra on one hand and you've got the Chronicoms on another hand. All of these little things gave me that feeling. But okay, I also love the new title card. This is gonna be a thing throughout the season. New title cards every episode or couple of episodes. Definitely getting a new one next week. I mean, it's the 1970s. It's gotta be something representative of the era. We've got the entire narration post the title card, the day that made Daniel Souza a legend, his final mission delivering a groundbreaking S.H.I.E.L.D. device to Howard Stark, which is the obvious reference here to his connection to Papa Stark on Agent Carter, and of course another story connection to the movie side of things. Now we get to see the Wall of Valor. That's an obvious Season 1 reference because we've seen that one before. On Season 1, Daisy was staring at the names. The name of Bucky Barnes was mentioned as one of the fallen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. When you think about it, Bucky Barnes was dead way before Daniel Souza, or presumed dead way before Daniel Souza. Actually, that's some kind of a parallel here with Daniel Souza by the end of the episode, presumed dead, a fallen agent. However, though, if you do look at the Wall of Valor, it has more than one logo. One of the two logos that we've got over there is the SSR logo. Bucky Barnes was presumed dead way before the formation of S.H.I.E.L.D. when he was part of the Howling Commandos, and he was considered a fallen agent of the SSR and not really a fallen agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that explains this part. But the next thing on our plate is that Enoch is back. Too sad Koenig is not around as well. I did expect to see him at some point down the road on this episode. Would have loved it really. But yeah though, Enoch is back. The only number that Coulson knew to dial in the 1950s is that of the speakeasy. And Enoch is still Enoch. Purely hilarious. I'm a bartender. It's your right to share and have me listen to your personal tale of misery. And you may proceed with your saga of struggle. Enoch was really the biggest comic relief that we got in this episode. Now, I'm not going to talk about the retrieval of the S.H.I.E.L.D. gadget in detail. I'm gonna talk about Deke's struggle with understanding the different eras. The 30s were sexist and racist, but the 50s though, they're still so sexist and racist. I would definitely agree with Yo-Yo over there. Things do get better. But I would also say that they're nowhere close to perfect. They never do. As a matter of fact, sometimes we do regress as human beings. But this entire thing, though, does complement his statement on last week's episode. Stupid white privilege. Love that scene, was so funny. And this one as well was kind of funny. Because Deke's discoveries of these different eras, understanding of history, it's always funny. But I'll circle back to Enoch here though, because honestly, I felt bad for the guy, repeatedly being treated like no one missed him. He felt that. Honestly, they've got an excuse. I mean, for them, no time has passed. For him, it's been a couple of decades. considering the era the episode is set in, the fact that we're continuing with an Agent Carter crossover, his working as a switchboard operator here kind of reminds me of all the ladies in the SSR building on Agent Carter, switchboard operating through their days. Still on Enoch here, love how he's given up at the end, felt bad for him, but loved that scene, even when he got the one call from the one cheerful guy that would let him know he was missed. He just transferred him, speaking of Deke here. In the end, a lot of people did miss having Enoch on the plane. Daisy's reaction wasn't as good, wasn't as emotional, wasn't caring enough. I mean, he's a Chronicom, and no matter how much time passes, he's still going to be there. That's not really the reaction that anyone wants when their name is dropped or mentioned. But yeah, we've got Coulson's "There was someone I couldn't stick around to make it last." That's a reference to his relationship with May. Not sticking around to make it last is a reference to his death after the end of Season 5, between Season 5 and Season 6. On the other hand, the talk about a similar story on Sousa's end is a reference to his relationship with none other than Peggy Carter, one person that we did hope to see on one of these episodes but didn't end up seeing. But here's a little bit of a twist. Even though this was filmed prior to Avengers Endgame, there is definitely a chance that she was the one who could not stick around to make it last. That final scene with Peggy and Rogers on Avengers Endgame. She did not stick around with Souza because she ended up with Steve Rogers. But the sad part over here is we've got a Stark name drop, multiple Stark name drops actually. There was the hope at the beginning of the episode that we might end up seeing him before the episode is over, but Stark is not going to be at the drop. That is the dream-shattering moment of this episode. That would have been the ultimate crossover moment if that were to happen on this episode. But Wilfred Malick is back. He's the one who kidnapped Deke, now older and portrayed by a different actor. It all started with Hydra. It makes a lot of sense that Hydra will always be around to be that third party, no matter what your villain is, that will mess everything up. I'd say he would have recognized Deke, but it does make a lot of sense he didn't as well, and he does mention that later on, because Deke hasn't aged a day between 1931 and 1955. But we've got another reference to the Avengers because we've got the similarity between the death of Souza and the death of Coulson. The former inspired a lot of agents within S.H.I.E.L.D. and the latter, it inspired the Avengers. But as part of the very same conversation, we also get a reference to the first season of the series and the Tahiti Project, because Mack does mention Coulson got to live to fight another day. But moving on to May's situation for a moment here, May's experience at the end of Season 6 does seem to have given her some kind of a superpower. She doesn't have all her emotions, but she is quite empathetic. She's feeling the emotions of anyone that she gets in touch with. She's in touch with that woman panicking on the base on last week's episode, and she gets a panic attack. She's in touch with Simmons when she sees that gadget, so she gets excited, because as Yo-Yo does state, only Simmons would get that giddy over something like this. She shakes the hand of Daniel Souza, and she feels the same way he's feeling. He wants to run, make a run for it. Leave the Zephyr, go make the delivery to Howard Stark, complete his mission. But a few final points over here. Love the statement, "Welcome to life after death." I'll tell you all about it. Loved as well Mack's statement, "Let's make some waves," when he's talking about saving Daniel Souza. Even though they kind of do it right, they kind of make sure that Daniel Souza is presumed dead in this era. But yeah, at first, he wants to make some waves. No matter what, he wants to save the good guy. But another thing that I really liked at the end of the episode is how the narration throughout the episode, the film noir style, that was all the making of Coulson, the story through Coulson's eyes, a glitch after being hit with that EMP at the end of last week's episode. But even though the team ends up jumping to the 70s by the end of this week's episode, we still get a stinger in the 1950s. The Chronicoms, they've left one of them behind, Luke, and he's making a new ally for them in Freddie Malick, and subsequently Hydra. And if you've got Hydra as an ally, this is going to be harder for the agents once they hit ground in the 1970s. That said though, let's check out the trailer of next week's episode, the 5th episode of the season, and let's talk about it real quick over here.
Might as well embrace the 1970s.
S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated by a Hydra cell aided by sentient time-traveling aliens.
Sounds problematic. What are you?
We gotta find some wheels and get out of here.
Come with me if you want to continue to exist.
Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The final mission continues.
So yeah, next week we're finally gonna meet Rick Stoner in the flesh. I've talked about Rick Stoner a lot in the past, you know, when we met him on Season 5, like his history in the comics, so I'm not really going to go through that on this video. However, though, the return of Rick Stoner means the return of the Lighthouse. May punching him might be about a lot of things. One of them is keeping the monoliths in the Lighthouse, which did cause a lot of problems on Season 5. As a matter of fact, the monoliths caused a lot of problems on Season 6. They are the reason she is in that state. They are the reason that Sarge made it with the face of Coulson in the first place. But there's possibly another reason. It might be a reference to the fact that Rick Stoner on the pages of the comics ends up being a villain. It could also be a reference to how cool Rick Stoner is. You know, not that kind of cool, but how cool he is in dark situations. Like, you know, the message with the options, you know, that menu during the lockdown on Season 5. He was so slow mentioning the options, Coulson had to jump to the first one that did suit the situation, even though there was one for an alien invasion. Oh, the possibilities never end, because it is also possible, because of that kind of cool that he keeps at all times, that May has her own doubts about who he really is. Does he happen to be the real Rick Stoner, or is he a Chronicom with the face of Rick Stoner? You know, they have infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. is a statement that we hear moments before. But I'm happy to report, the trailer is happy to report that Enoch is gonna be around on next week's episode, and he's gonna be reunited with the team, because come with me if you still want to exist. That's a play on the Terminator's "Come with me if you want to live," because I did mention prior to the airing of the season that I'm expecting that we're gonna get some Terminator references on the season. Another big thing on next week's episode, we kind of figured that out by the end of this week's episode. You know, the stinger is that Malick is still going to be around. So the villain right now is not just going to be the Chronicoms, but rather the Chronicoms and Hydra. And I'm expecting over here that by the end of the season, the only villain that's gonna remain, the only villain that they will have to fight to the very end, will be Hydra. I might even say that we might end up seeing Grant Ward at some point. I mean, maybe he never died, maybe he never ended up becoming Hive on this timeline, this new timeline, because of all the changes that the Chronicoms are making, because of the Chronicoms uniting with Hydra in order to achieve what they were meant to achieve. Maybe Ward will be saved in the first place from becoming a Hydra agent, or will end up being redeemed at some point. I'm thinking the possibility does exist that by the time they return to present day, we might have an Agents of Hydra kind of situation, like the Chronicoms are gonna help them advance enough and end up gaining full control of the situation. We're gonna see about that when we get there though. Alright, a lot of possibilities here. I don't want to go into each and every one of them. I just hope they maintain the integrity of the timeline in order to get to a point where they are definitely united with the main Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline. With that being said, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this week's episode. Let me know what other characters you expect to see before the end of the season, and do let me know as well who you think the major villain of the season is going to be in the end. Is it always going to be the Chronicoms? Is it going to be Hydra? Or do you think some other villain is going to rise from the ashes and come to face off with S.H.I.E.L.D. on the final few episodes of the season, you know, in present day? Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it one of those much appreciated likes, subscribing to this channel, and you can make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review. Stay safe and have a great day.